All right. A good morning to you all, and thank you very much for joining this Business of Maize Production webinar. My name is Rawlings, your host, and I am with Agribusiness Media. And I do hope that you will benefit from this virtual learning event. I also hope that you are staying safe, practicing social distancing, sanitizing, and masking up. We are live on Agribusiness Media Facebook page. And I'm sure that you have done your system check and your audio and speaker is working fine. If you are not presenting, we kindly ask you to please turn off your video and audio. We will also try to control that from this end. So how this webinar is going to unfold is we are going to have very informative presentations from our guests, then give you farmers or our participants that are joining us a chance to ask questions. So this is meant to allow a smooth transition between the presenters. If you have any question, you can use the comment section if you're watching on Facebook. And if you are joining us on Zoom, you can use the chat section. Alternatively, you can use the raise hand feature during the question and answer time. So today we are joined by special guests who have vast of experience and knowledge in the business of farming. We have Wendy Madzura. She is the head of agronomy with SEEDCO, and we have Zivanai Gonzo. He is the technical advisor with ZFC. And the ultimate gist of this webinar is to help you, our farmers, to learn and adopt methods that we believe will improve your maize farm business operations. It will also help you to prepare for the season. I would now like to invite our first speaker, Wendy Madzura, to help us with information on key considerations when selecting seed varieties. She will also touch on gross margins for maize, and also she will share more information on how to do it right. Wendy, you can go for it.
Thank you so much for unmuting. Welcome to this timely webinar where we are going to be discussing the significance of maize production as we build up towards the summer season that is upon us. So let me try and share the screen. So I would like to thank Agribusiness for planning this timely webinar where we are going to be discussing the business of maize production, because nowadays there's talk of farming as a business, not as an extra curricular activity or something that you do as a hobby or to pass time. So we really need to invest in farming as a formidable business. So with that in mind, my name is Wendy Madzura. I'm the head of agronomy services for SEEDCO Zimbabwe. SEEDCO is not only a Zimbabwean company, it's a Pan-African company where we are now in more than 15 African countries. So which is to say that the seed is the seed of choice and the seed that will increase productivity and profitability. So the presentation housekeeping rules, I'm sure they have been covered and we have had an outlay of what to expect during the presentation. The layout is going to be as follows. I'll start by highlighting the essential elements in agriculture, then give you a brief rundown of the good agronomic practices, though I will not dwell much on the explanations of the good agronomic practices, as the next speaker, Mr. Zivanai Gonzo, is going to come in with a more detailed explanation to the good agronomic practices that include soil conditioning and land preparation, as well as nutrition and pest management. I'll, however, then look at seed selection and planting tips, where I'll highlight the selection of the right seed. Then we'll end by discussing the profit story by looking at the profit budget guide that we have for maize, which we can discuss. Suffice to say that a guide is meant to give you a starting point where you can then feed into, given the different areas that you're going to be getting your seed, as well as the other cost structures that might be associated. Essential elements for crop production include and are not limited to the genetics, which speak to the issues to do with the right germplasm. You need to start right with the right genetics that have the potential to give you the desired outcome. It also then speaks about the weather, where we are looking at climate change as a topical issue, as over the years we have seen unforeseen weather vagaries being a major hindrance in crop production. Suffice to say that climate change is not only an explanation of the eras or periods when we get low rainfall, but it also speaks to some areas receiving more rainfall than usual, some areas receiving a shorter rainfall season than usual, and it also speaks to issues to do with an increase in heat units in areas where previously we did not get those heat units. So the weather vagaries are important for us to take note of as we prepare for the season and be guided accordingly as we select for climate smart farming initiatives that include land preparation as well as crop selection. It also then looks at the important main growing media in crop production, which is the soil. Nurturing the soil is of pivotal importance to us as it speaks to sustainable agriculture initiatives where we are talking about moving hand in glove with the global thrust about making agriculture a more environmentally friendly way of doing our business. Then we look at the management. Suffice to say that management plays a pivotal role in that you find that all other factors held constant. With poor management, you fail to get or unlock the genetic potential of the variety that you will have established, or you fail to unlock the value out of the healthy, good pH, good soil nutrition, organic matter soil that you have because of poor management. So we want to advocate for an integration of all these essential elements for increased crop productivity. So the yield determinants in maize production, there are 1,000 reasons for low yields in crop production, be it maize or any other crop, but there are only 2 reasons for increased crop productivity: using the right Sitco seed that is in tandem with your agroecological region, as you will see as we proceed with the presentation, and adopting good agronomic practices. So just briefly to touch on issues to do with soil sampling and soil conditioning, this is a timely exercise that advocates and enables a farmer to have a custom-made fertilizer and liming recommendations and move away from the general recommendations. I will not dwell much on this as this is going to be covered by the next speaker, but it's important to note that soil sampling increases fertilizer use efficiency, which then feeds into the production matrix and ultimately the profit story of the maize production. In terms of land preparation, issues to do with the selection of the type and method of land preparation are topical nowadays, where there is talk about conventional tillage versus conservation tillage, with the latter being the one that we are advocating for, especially as we move hand in glove with sustainable agriculture initiatives. Conservation tillage is guided by 3 principles, which are the minimum soil disturbance, soil cover, permanent ground cover, as well as the promotion of rotations. Farmers should note that these 3 should at any given time be available and practiced for us to safely say we are in the business of conservation tillage. However, conventional tillage still has its place, as we find that most of our farmers are still adopting this method of farming. But for these farmers, we also encourage them to then come in with more environmentally friendly methods of conventional tillage, where they can incorporate the stover when they are doing their land preparation to promote good drainage and improve soil organic matter in the process. So it's important for us to take note of the method of land preparation that we're going to be using, as well as the benefits and the challenges that it might pose. For example, with conventional tillage, over time, you loosen the soil and it might result in erosion. But you also find that over time again, continuous use of conservation will promote the development of a plow pen, which you might need to break over a period of about 3 years or 3 seasons by coming in with conventional tillage. More will be discussed as we move to in the other presentations that we are going to get from the next speakers. Fertilizer management. Fertilizer management should be guided by soil analysis. This is a point and a topic that we constantly hammer on because we want our farmers to get to a point where they appreciate and understand the importance of soil analysis. More will be covered in terms of the selection of the right fertilizer, the right types, as well as the right application times, as well as methods that are associated with fertilizer management as we build towards giving the crop its desired nutrient content and we build towards increasing crop production. Weed management as well, it plays a pivotal part where you find that the weeds compete with the crop for nutrition, for growing space, as well as for moisture. So in a period where we want to maximize on crop production, weed management plays a pivotal role. And we also need to make sure that our crop is weed-free, yes, for the first few weeks, but preferably for the whole cropping cycle, as this will also promote a high production as well as harvestability of the crop when the time comes to harvest. We also look at issues to do with insect pest management, where a farmer, when they are venturing into a cropping venture, they need to understand the problematic insect pests that are associated with any crop, where you find that for maize, cutworms, whiteclaps, armyworm, and the huge menace being fall armyworm are the major insect pests of concern that you might face in maize production. More will be covered as we get into the presentation, where we are going to be getting explanations of remedial measures that you can come in with. But some of the challenges that fall armyworm can pose on the crop include the challenge that it multiplies very rapidly in the field, and it has to be controlled timeously, where if you delay control, you might be faced with challenges whereby you will fail to control it. So you need to come in timeously at the first insta, or just to come in with an integrated approach where you're just crushing the egg masses on the leaves before they hatch, because the damage on your crop is dismal, as you can see on the damage symptoms that are being shown on the crop that is on the screen. So some of the insecticides that can be used are highlighted there on the screen. The list is not exhaustive, but there are also there's also some new chemistry that has come on board, as you will hear when the next speaker comes in with their presentation. In terms of soil organic matter buildup is important. This is one of the ways in which we can safeguard our soils and make sure that we are also preserving it for future generations to benefit from it. So in terms of soil organic matter management, it's important for us to use manure. We can use manure. We can use all other forms of organic matter. Suffice to say that when we are using manure, it has to be fully decomposed. Otherwise, it might present problems where it then introduces insect pests in the fields, or it can then be a source of diseases. So we also need to make sure that it's fully decomposed before use. Otherwise, we might create challenges or problems in the fields. Then we also look at issues to do with mulch, which has been a topical issue, especially in the previous season, where the resource-constrained farmers or the small-scale farmers were encouraged to use the Pumvudza concept as a way to adopt conservation tillage and a precision way of farming that promotes intensity rather than scales of production. So this is also important for us to understand that mulch, in terms of climate smart initiatives, is one of the ways that we can also use. Suffice to say that conservation is not only for the resource-constrained farmers, but the resource-endowed farmers as well. They can also adopt it, provided they have the right implements and the right tools to use, where you find that there are some farmers and some large-scale farms that have been using CA for a very long time and have been reaping the benefits. At Kunata Estates Hinton Farm in Matepatepa, they've been practicing conservation on some of their fields for more than 15 years. And now their fertilizer management has come, in terms of their fertilizer application has come down because of the build up of the organic matter, which is now well above 4% as is recommended. Also in Kadoma, we have a farmer who is practicing that same method of CA, where they've built up in terms of their organic matter, and over time it reduces on the cost structure by managing the fertilizer management. Then in terms of water conservation, as we speak about management of climate change or mitigation of climate change, so to say, we find that we need to be wary of the fact that, yes, as much as we expect a normal to above normal season, but it will vary for different areas. And we also need to be in a position to construct contour ridges that are also going to be in line with the nature of the terrain that we have, as well as in some cases where predominantly we used to get very good rains, but because of climate change, the rains are not as good as we anticipate. You find that you might need to come in with conservation methods and methods of harnessing the moisture that we will have received in our fields. So now we move on to issues to do with planting. Time of planting plays a pivotal role in increasing crop productivity, in the sense that if you plant on time, you optimize on all the key elements that are associated with increasing crop production, where you find that from October, November, right through to December, that is when we experience the greatest percentage of the heat units that we want for the growth of our crop. As you know that the crops are also, the rate of growth is associated with the heat units. All other factors held constant. So it's also important for us to take note of the time of planting. You also need to take note of issues to do with the altitude, where altitude affects days to maturity for different crops, even for different varieties in different maturity groups, where you find that, for example, take a late maturing variety like 727. If it's established in Masvingo, it's going to mature much earlier because of the higher heat units experienced there and the altitude than the same crop being established in Mount Selinda, where we find our region 1, in Nyanga, or in region 2. So this is also important for us to take note of. So days of planting should also be guided as well by the intended period of harvest, where if you're doing multiple cropping, it means you need to plant as early as possible, so that you come in with your next crop, be it wheat, be it a horticulture crop like peas. You might need to come in early with that crop so that you get time to establish your winter crop without being delayed by the harvesting period that is required by the summer crop. Then when we look at issues to do with our seasonal forecast, this was adopted from the presentation that we got from the Meteorological Services Department. They highlighted that we have a favorable rainfall season, where from October, November to December, we have a normal to above normal rainfall season, highlighted by the map there, which is in blue, which is highlighting that we are expecting rains for most of the country. Normality will depend on the normal rains that are usually associated with an area, guided by the regions, as you will see in the next presentations. The same applies for the January, February, and March period, where you find that we are also anticipating to get a normal to above normal rainfall period. This is the map that we use when we are explaining the agroecological regions. The one that is on my left is also highlighting the variety selection, which is guided by the regions, agroecological regions, where you find that intensive, specialized and diversified farming is associated with region 1, where they receive a rainfall of above 1,000 millimeters, which is to say if we are expecting a normal rainfall to above normal, it's that amount and above. But you find that for region 5, the rainfall is less than 650 millimeters, so the variety selection should be guided accordingly, where on the map you see that there is the very early and early maturing varieties recommended there. So the map that you are seeing on my right is just the map that was discussed in the previous season, where there was talk about reclassifying the regions, but we are still waiting for the relevant authorities to then communicate further on the adoption of this map. Suffice to say that for now, we are guided by the map that we have used traditionally, which is the 5 agroecological zones, with region 2 being subdivided into region 2A and 2B. Then in terms of the issues to do with the plant populations, over the years, there have been a hype whereby farmers have been wanting to move with the global thrust of increasing plant populations. But the important message that we want to drive home is that we need to be guided by the cost structure, where we are saying you need to do a cost-benefit analysis of the increase in population versus the yield that is ultimately going to be achieved, where you also need to increase your productivity and return per dollar invested. At SIDCO, we recommend a plant population of 50,000 to 60,000 plants per hectare for different varieties in different maturity groups, where for the varieties that tend to grow tall, we recommend that you end at around 53 to 55,000 plants per hectare. But in a dry season, the populations can be even as low as 44,000 to 48,000 plants per hectare. So you need to be guided by the region as well as the crop in question that you want to establish. There we have just provided some of the populations for some key crops outside of maize that can be established by a farmer. In terms of variety selection, as I move towards winding up, it's important for you to be guided in terms of your variety selection by the amount of and distribution of rainfall. If you have irrigation, it means you might select varieties that are outside of your region's recommendation because you can supplement the irrigation. The length of the growing season, altitude, as we spoke about earlier on, the soil fertility. Well, some varieties are heavy feeders, and your yield potential should be or should also guide in terms of the variety that you're going to use and the fertility management. The occurrence of diseases as well, and the management that is going to be employed. So in terms of variety selection, at Seedco, we have a very wide product basket where we are now moving with the times and constantly availing climate smart varieties that are in line with the season and in line with the climatic changes that we are seeing. So we have an ultra early maturing variety, SC301, coming on board in the next seasons is SC303, and we are even in the process of working on an earlier maturing variety, which is going to be in the 200 series. So watch this space. So in the early maturing varieties, we have the 400 series. The new flagship there is SC419, which is a variety that comes in to complement and go above what our 403 was doing, in the sense that it has a higher yield potential, it has a closed tip, and a drooping effect in the event that we have late rains to reduce the incidence of crop rots. 419 is a high yielding variety that is also climate smart and drought tolerant. In the 500 series, which are the early maturing varieties, we have had SC529 coming in to complement the well-adopted and well-accepted 513 variety that has been grown extensively. But now we have released SC555, a variety that has increased the cropping ability of farmers in the 500 series, and farmers who have grown it have really had an appreciation and acceptance of this 555 variety, to an extent that it's like what happens when you're selling hot buns, where if you put it on the shelf, it quickly runs out. So we encourage our farmers to adopt it. It's a new variety, well adopted to the different agroecological regions, with a stay green character that then also adopts, promotes the adoption of climate smartness. So it's a very good variety to take on board. In the 600 series, medium maturing varieties, where we have seen that most of our farmers are playing in, especially those who are doing double cropping, and in a bid to mitigate climate change, we are seeing that those farmers, even in high potential areas, are growing 600 and 700 series varieties to mitigate and spread their growing risk. So we find that we have SC649, the Desert Walker variety, which has been termed the Desert Walker because of its climate smartness, not only in Zimbabwe, but in Africa. But to top it up, we have released SC659, which I'm sure you have had an experience of and seen from the previous seasons, and the farmers who have grown it. That is a very good variety with very high yields, very climate smart as well. But this year, suffice to say that at Seedco, we do not stop. Our thrust is to continuously improve and develop innovative technologies in terms of breeding our maize seed. So we have SC657, which is a very drought hardy variety, which you can grow extensively in different regions. It's a drought tolerant variety. We also have SC661, which we can term a clean variety, which is to say, with the nature of the rains that we are getting, this variety can withstand problematic rust diseases that we saw in the previous season, owing to the nature of the rains that we received. Then we also have in the 700 series the flagships 719 and 727. Suffice to say that 719 is proving to be a pan-African hybrid, where it's performing as far as Tanzania, it's performing as far as Zambia, all the agroecological regions, it's performing well. So it's a variety of choice with a closed tip as well as a drought tolerance advantage. So now, as we move towards concluding, this is the profit matrix budget that we have, where we are speaking about the cost structure that you are looking at when you're looking at your production, where you find that the cost structure is going to be guided by the choice of production that you're going to be making. Is it a high management farm? Is it a medium or a low management farm? But for this guide here, it's for a high management farmer who is aiming to achieve a very high yield of at least 10 tons per hectare. So you find that seed selection plays a pivotal role, and it contributes about 7% to the cost structure, and the cost there would differ depending on the variety that is going to be used. Then you also find that fertilizer management, herbicide management, they also come in and play a pivotal role, where fertilizer management takes in a huge chunk of the cost structure for maize production. But we'll hear more on that when we speak to our agronomists, the next speaker, Mr. Gonzo. The insecticide management as well. On herbicide management, farmers should be guided by the weed spectrum. Insecticides as well, you don't need to put all your eggs in one basket. You need to be incorporating different active ingredients that you're going to be coming in with, especially to manage insect pests that develop resistance quickly. In terms of tractor hiring and harvest and equipment hiring, you also need to do your maths correctly, do your homework, do your research, find out from the different service providers where you can make a cost saving so that you can increase on your productivity. This has been shared extensively on different platforms, but we can discuss further after this presentation in an effort for us to manage our time for other presentations to come. So this is just to highlight SC661 and 657, the varieties that we launched this year, where you find that 661 can reach yields of 16 metric tons per hectare under optimum management, as well as the 657 as well, which also has a good standability and drought tolerance. So in conclusion, you need to bear in mind that there are 1,000 reasons for low yields, but there are only 2 reasons for increased crop productivity and high yields. That's using seed cogenetics and adopting good agronomic practices. Good agronomic practices, as we often mention, have become a mantra that we are moving with. But we need to pay attention to the nitty-gritties that fit into the good agronomic practices for us to increase our crop productivity and profit stories. So in conclusion, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. So we need to nurture our soils. And we need to bear in mind that Sitco is moving with the times. Digital marketing efforts have been made. We are now on various platforms to make sure that the message goes home and comes home in terms of our marketing, as well as our agronomic thrust, and in terms of promoting good agronomic practices. So all our seed is available on our online store, and you can get more information on the website. Suffice to say that the COVID pandemic is still amongst us. So we also need to mask up and get vaccinated so that we continue with our cropping ventures, as we all know that we are only essential for as long as we are alive. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to present this presentation. And at this time, I would like to hand over to our keynote speaker for the next presentation. Thank you.
Many thanks, Wendy, for that great presentation. You touched the key issues there that, if followed, will help farmers to do it right. We now invite our next presenter. He is the technical advisor with ZFC, is Mr. Ziwanai Gonzo. Mr. Ziwanai, you can go for it. All right, or maybe whilst we are still waiting for Mr. Ziwanai to connect his audio, maybe Wendy, you can take the following questions that we have received. And just a reminder to our farmers that are joining in, please, if you have any question or comment, just use the chat section. If you are watching us on Zoom, and if you are watching us live on Facebook, you can use the comment section. The first question here is, I am in Mukumbura. What is the best variety I can grow this year?
Thank you very much. I think I might need a bit of clarity about where Mukumbura is so that I can better assist.
Okay, it's in Mount Darwin.
Okay, so Mount Darwin falls within region 3. So if it's in region 3, there's region 3 and region 4. There are parts that are in region 2, but mostly it's region 3. So for region 3, for 100% rain-fed crop, we recommend that you grow SC555 or SC419. Those varieties are geared up to give you good yields for your area. And allow me to just also emphasize the importance of growing varieties in different maturity groups so that you also spread the risk, because with climate change, even in a good season, you might have prolonged dry spells that might affect your crop at a critical growth stage. So you need to make sure that at least you have crops in different stages at any time so that you can also spread the risk. So for Mukumbura in Mount Darwin, you are recommended to grow very early maturing varieties, SC419, and SC555, which is an early maturing variety.
All right, thanks for taking that one, Wendy. The other question, or the next question here, is what is the main difference between 727 and 719? And can these be grown in Kwekwe if you have irrigation?
Thank you very much. That's a very, very important question. So what we do at Seedco is that when we release a blockbuster like 727, we don't stop there. We want to also complement it by producing other varieties, because with agriculture and a dynamic environment that we also produce our crops, you don't want to have a variety that over time there might be the development of a disease that might wipe out that particular variety when you only have one variety in a maturity group. So that's when 719 came on board. 719 was bred to be more drought tolerant than SC727. So it's a variety which, if you check, you can see that it's a bulky and leafy variety with a stay green character. So this also promotes a prolonged period of adaptation to moisture stress as opposed to the 727. So it's a more drought tolerant variety. Then when it comes to the tip cover, 727, top performing as it is, being a flagship as it is, it has an open tip. So SC719 also came in to complement by having a closed tip, where yes, the open tip, for some farmers, you find that even in South Africa, they prefer that open tip because it promotes a faster dry down. But you also want to have a variety that has a closed tip so that some farmers can also have that choice, that freedom of choice to opt for the 727 or the 719 because of the closed tip that it has. But topical, which is I'm sure one of the most the question that the farmers have, is the issue to do with the yield. But for 727 and 719, these two varieties have yields that are comparable, which is to say they can both safely hit above 16 tons per hectare under optimum management. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Wendy. Then we now invite Mr. Ziwanai for his presentation. You can go for it.
Thank you, Rollins. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ziwanai Gonza. I'm technical advisor with ZFC. It's very important for us to bear in mind that farming has now been, we have to take it as a business, as Wendy has indicated, and we always talk about value chains. So we are here as ZFC to help you create more value in your value chains at the farms. My presentation, I'm going to talk about maize production, particularly looking at nutrition and the crop protection aspects of maize production. As an introduction, we are saying maize is cultivated in all 5 regions in our country, but you realize that region 2 and region 3 account for about 85 to 90% of total maize that is produced in the country. As a nation, we require about 2,227,000 tons of maize, of which about a quarter of it is for livestock consumption and about 1.7 for human consumption. So maize is a very important crop in our country. In my presentation, we'll look at the climatic requirements, then I'll go to soil requirements, nutritional requirements, as well as crop protection issues. So in terms of climatic requirements, we are saying maize is a warm weather crop and grows best in areas of 18 to 27 degrees Celsius during the day and about 14 degrees during the night. So we are saying farmers are advised to plant the crop with the first effective rains, not to benefit from high heat units during the early stages of growth. So what are the climatic requirements for the crop? We're saying the minimum temperature for germination is around 10 degrees C, and germination will be faster when soil temperature increases. And then temperatures above 30 degrees C will also affect yield by affecting pollen viability, while temperatures below 10 degrees will retard growth. Rush to soil requirements. Our maize crop does best pH range of 5 to 6.5 on a calcium chloride scale. So how do you know the pH status of your soil? You can only come to terms with it after you have brought your soils for analysis, so that you understand the nutritional status of your soil. So we are advising our farmers to bring their soils for analysis. That's where we start. So a well-conditioned soil is high fertilizer use efficiency. Some soils that we are analyzing, I was having another presentation yesterday. I was saying of the soils that we are analyzing here at ZFC, 80% of them have got low pH. In other words, the soils are acidic, and about 40 to 50% of the soils are lacking phosphorus in their fields. So it is of paramount importance for farmers to make sure that they are bringing their soils for analysis, so that they make better fertilizer decisions. So soil pH is an excellent indicator of soil quality. If your pH is low, then you won't benefit from the fertilizer that you apply. Fertilizer use efficiency will be very low, right? So in terms of crop nutrition, I'm going to use what we call the 4R principles of nutrition management. I'll then explain and expand on this one. So the 4R principles, we are only saying, are you using the right source of fertilizer? Are you applying the right rate of fertilizer? Are you applying the fertilizer at the right time? And are you placing the fertilizer correctly? When we are talking of right source, we are saying this matches fertilizer type to crop needs. Right rate, we are saying you're matching the amount of fertilizer to crop needs. Then the right time, we are saying you are making nutrients available when the crop needs them. And right placement, we are saying we are keeping nutrients where crops can easily, use them. So right source, what are we saying? How do you determine source of fertilizer to apply in your maize crop? Soil analysis becomes key. And you have to understand that crops have different needs when it comes to nutrition. That's why you realize that we have a number of different fertilizer lines for different crops. Here we are saying general recommendations will give general yields. Just because your neighbor has applied 400 kgs per hectare of compound D does not mean you also need to apply 400 kgs of compound D. That is general. So we are saying general recommendations will give general yields and general return at the end of the season. So soil analysis is very important, right? Right amount. How do you determine the right amount of fertilizer to apply in your maize crop? And there are a number of factors to consider here. We are talking of variety. Wendy has indicated that they have got a number of varieties with different maturity indices. So you cannot apply the same amount of fertilizer in a long season variety as well as in an ultra early maturing varieties, because they've got different potential. So to unleash the varietal potential, you have to understand the potential within a variety. You have to understand your target yield that you are looking at attaining for you to make the best decision regarding the amount of fertilizer to apply. But generally, we are saying to produce 1 ton of grain in maize, you need 18 to 23 kgs of nitrogen. You need 7 to about 11 kgs of P2O5. That's your phosphorus. You also need 7 to 11 kgs of K2O, which is your potash. This is just a general guide. So let's say you are targeting 10 tons per hectare. It means you need to apply 180 to 200 kgs of nitrogen, and you for your nitrogen, you get some in your basal, and then most of it will be in your top dressing. So that's a general guide of the right amount of fertilizer to apply depending on the situation that would be at your farm. And what is the right time of applying different fertilizers in your maize? For you to understand the right time, you need to have knowledge on maize, growth stages. Okay, so I've put here some of the stages which are critical in maize production. Basically, there are two main stages, which are your vegetative stages and then your reproductive stages. Vegetative stages are denoted by your V, stages are denoted by R. So when you say VE, we are saying emergence. Up to VN, VN is the last leaf collar. So V1 is first leaf, V2, V3, V5, 5-leaf stage. Then VT, that's the tasseling stage. And in terms of reproductive stages, we are saying from silking up to maturity. These are your stages in maize. So this figure now gives all the stages that I've discussed, and operations that are important at every stage. Realize that from V0, that is germination. So at V0, you should have applied your basal fertilizer. And weed control becomes very critical from V0 to V5. Then your top dressing, we are saying from V5 to about V12, we are applying our top dressing fertilizers. Then if you go on from VT, which is your tasseling, to about R2, R3, we are saying moisture is very critical at tasseling. If a mid-season drought comes during that period, you won't have your yield, because tasseling and pollination, synchronization will be negatively affected. So this figure is very important for you to understand stages that are critical and the operations that must be carried out for us to come up with the yield that we are targeting, or for us to unleash the potential that is in these varieties. And I've put this figure, these two figures, for you to understand leaf counting using the collar method. Is the most common method. We want to understand when we are saying our maize is got 5 leaves, what do we really mean? What do we really consider? You realize that this picture to your left, that maize plant is got 5 leaves, but visually there are more than 5 leaves there. So what do we consider when we are saying a maize crop is at 5-leaf stage, is at 6-leaf stage? Apply your top dressing at 5-leaf stage. We are saying the leaf that is showing what we call a collar to your right, those are the leaves that we count. So if a leaf is not showing that collar, we don't count it. So you realize that that figure to your left is showing a maize plant at 5-leaf stage. That is very important, and that is the stage which is critical for your nitrogen, because at that stage your crop is growing vigorously and it requires a lot of nitrogen. The nitrogen needs are highest it's from V5, because there's rapid vegetative development, and we are urging farmers to avoid water and nutrient shortages to ensure that the maximum number of kernels and cob size development takes place. At that stage, tassel formation has already been, initiated. So it is the ideal growth stage to side dress our maize crop with nitrogen. You realize that nitrogen uptake begins to increase at V5, which is a 5-leaf stage. Okay, so if you are in sandy soils, we are saying you can split apply nitrogen from a 5-leaf stage to about a 12-leaf stage, so that we avoid, a leaching of the nutrient. Then in terms of basal fertilizer, we are saying the seed that you plant is got reserves, okay? And the reserves are important for you. They can take the for the first week until the primary roots develop, and begin to supply the plant with water and nutrients. So we are saying basal fertilizer should be applied at or before planting. Okay, at or before planting. When you see you are applying your basal fertilizer, which is your D, your double D, your cereal blend, after the crop has emerged, it means you have lost it. So in terms of right placement, we are saying you are keeping nutrients where crops need them. So your basal fertilizer should be placed where it is available to the roots because of phosphorus, which is not mobile. Okay, so if you place your basal fertilizer on top, it means your crop will not benefit from the phosphorus, which is not mobile. It will remain where you have applied it. So right placement is very important. So given the narrative that I've just given you, so what are the fertilizers that we are recommending for you guys to use this coming season for you to produce a 10-ton crop? What I'm giving you is just a general, which I have indicated that when you use general recommendation, you get a general yield. What is key is bring your soil for analysis. But all the same, for maize FET, which is your 7-14-7, we are saying 600 kgs per hectare for you to get at least 10 tons. You may also come in with your double D, which is 14-28-14. You apply half of your D, so you need to apply 300 kgs per hectare. You may choose to apply cereal blend 6-23-23. This one contains zinc and boron as well as sulfur. You need to apply 350 kgs. You may also in with your ZFC High D. ZFC High D is the latest innovation that we have launched. It's a high analysis granulated fertilizer that you may come in with at 450 kgs per hectare in order to achieve at least 10 tons per hectare. Then for your top dressings, we are saying you may come in with your AN at 500 kgs per hectare or a urea at 350 kgs per hectare, and you may split apply your top dressings at V5, which is your 5-leaf stage, and then you may need to come in again at around V12, which is your 12-leaf stage. Okay. So these are the advantages of using high analysis fertilizers. You save on transport, you save on space, and lower cost per nutrient. Right, I'll go straight into crop protection and start with weed management. So it is very important to start with a weed-free field, especially for the first 10 to 12 weeks. Because this is the period when more than 60% of the available nutrients are used or are required by the crop. I said you apply your basal fertilizer at planting, then your top dressing at 5-leaf stage to about 12-leaf stage. So it's important for you to make sure that your field is weed-free. And a failure to control weeds during the period, will lead to about 50 to 70% reduction in yield. And the presence of weed or weeds during harvesting may slow the process, may pollute your grain with weed seeds, causing downgrading or you may incur additional costs to remove, the weeds chaff. So you may need to come in with your management tools. For example, use of herbicides. Some may use hand pulling, depending on the scale of production. But I'll talk about herbicides. And if you are to use herbicides, there are some factors that you need to put into consideration when selecting a good herbicide for your field. You have to understand the weed spectrum of your field. What is the dominant weeds there, or what are the dominant weeds that are in your field? Are they broadleaf weeds? Are they grasses? Are they sages? You also need to take into consideration the stage of control, whether you want to use a pre-cleanup herbicide, whether you want to use a pre-emergence herbicide or a post-emergence herbicide. And another very important factor is a rotation plan. Your cropping program, what crops do you want to plant after removing your maize, so that you make the best choice, because there are some herbicides that have got long residual effects or activity. For example, your atrazine, you can't apply it in a field which you would want to plant a legume, the following season. So that information is very critical for you when it comes to herbicide selection. And if you are not sure, if you can't identify weeds in your field, we encourage you to get in touch with our agronomists. They are out there to help you. You may even bring the samples of the weeds to us, then we identify them for you. Okay, so your application equipment must be well calibrated, and to make sure you're using the right nozzle for the right herbicide. So what are the pre-clean up herbicides that we have in our basket for you to use this coming summer? We have glyphosate, as well as Dicot. You can use these to clean up your field before your crop is planted or before your crop emerges. Glyphosate and Dicot are non-selective herbicides, so we don't want you to apply these to emerge the maize crop. Otherwise, you burn your crop. Then, as for pre-emergence herbicides, we have a number of products in our basket, including your Integrity, which takes care of broadleaf and annual grasses, your Jua Magnum, which mainly does annual grasses, Butler Gold, which does annual grasses and broadleaf weeds, as well as your atrazine. Then the rate of application of your pre-emergence herbicide is mainly determined by the number, by the quality of your soil. If your soil has got high clay content, you need to use high rates. Why? Because soils with high clay content tend to absorb and withhold some of the herbicides. So you need to apply more. Soils with high clay content, soils with high organic matter, you need to apply more as compared to sandy soils. So I was discussing pre-emergence herbicides. Then another group of herbicides that is important to our farmers to consider when they are making herbicide selection decisions is your post-emergence herbicide, which are simply the herbicides that you apply after both your crop and weeds have germinated. And these ones are mainly, selective herbicides, which will take care of the weeds and leaving your crop. Examples are your halosulfuron for nut sage, your basagran for yellow nut sage and broadleaf weeds, your Stellar Star, which takes care of annual grasses and broadleaf weeds, dicamba takes care of broadleaf weeds, and volunteer soybean. There's also MCPA, which does control your broadleaf weeds. Then when it comes to crop protection, still on crop protection, there's this issue of pest management, and there's this major pest which has emerged, your fall armyworm. When we talked about it, it's important to make sure that we are scouting our fields regularly and make sure we invoke control measures like your Cerefsee Spike Extra, your belt, your Ampligo. These ones will take care of the fall armyworm. Then there's also another pest which we call your maize stalk borer. Control options also include your Spike Extra, your stalk borer Q, your Carbaryl chlorpyrifos, or even Lambda. And then there's this one called the white grub. It's a devastating pest in most fields. So we encourage farmers to apply chlorpyrifos at planting before they cover their seed. For those who use planters, we just encourage them to come in with chlorpyrifos and then make sure that there is moisture to activate the chemical so that it moves down the soil profile. I think let me end here, Rollins. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Zilana Gonzo, for that great presentation. You covered key issues there on maize crop protection as well as soil health issues. And because of our time, we shall take a few questions that you farmers and participants have been sending before we end this meeting. The question here is one of the questions that we are going to take is, I've been trying to access SEEDCO agronomy manual, but I'm failing. Can you assist? Okay, it's for Wendy.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So the SEEDCO agronomy manual is readily available that I can share with you soon after this presentation so that you can also share it with the participants for further reference.
All right, thank you for taking that one. Then another one is from James Mahachi. He says, this takes away all the guesswork in maize production. Knowledge is power. Thank you very much, presenters. Okay, it's just a comment. Thanks very much, James, for that encouragement and comment. Then another one is for Ziwanai. It's saying, good morning. How do we collect soil samples and how much is it for soil testing? I think the soil sampling can be a separate webinar.
Yes,
I don't know. Okay, yes. So I think maybe the other one on how much is it for soil testing?
How much is it for?
I think they're asking the cost for soil analysis.
Okay, it's $25 per sample for full analysis, and $4 per sample for pH analysis.
All right, thank you. I think another related question is saying, how long does it take to get the results?
Okay, full analysis takes 14 days. pH takes five days.
All right, thank you for taking that one. Then another one says, thank you for a well-informed presentation, Wendy. Can we buy your products online? Struggling to get seeds here. I'm in Rusape.
Hello, thank you so much for that. Yes, they can buy our seed from our distribution network, including Rusape. So what I can then do after the presentation, I can share the contact details of our sales team in the field so that the farmers can be assisted in terms of the ability for them to buy the seed. Just to emphasize that, SEEDCO seed is like what burns. So it sells out quickly. So the earlier you buy, the better. But but I'll provide the contact details for further use for the farmers that want to buy it.
All right, thank you for taking that one, Wendy. Then Basil, your hand is up. Okay, whilst Basil is unmuting, another question is saying, okay, another farmer is saying, I wanted to find out in the area of Darwendale, which seed variety should one plant?
Hello, which area is this one?
It's Darwendale.
Or in Darwendale. Darwendale falls within region 2, either region 2A or 2B. So we recommend that with timely planting, the farmer can plant a late maturing variety in the 700 series or a medium maturing variety, which includes the flagship 659 and the new varieties that were released, 661 and 657. And the farmer should bear in mind that 661 is more tolerant to diseases.
All right, thank you for taking that one, Wendy. Then another one, okay, is from Atanire. He says, thank you very much, Mr. Gonzo. Much appreciated for your presentation. Please advise as well if we can buy your products online.
Yes.
From the participants.
We have 2 online stores here, the ZW one and the USD one. So they can get to our ZW store or via www.zfcstore.co.zw. For the USD store, it's the www.zfcstore.com.
All right, thank you for taking that one, Mr. Ziwanai. And Dambudzo, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. I put in my 2 questions on the chat, but it seems we haven't seen them. One was for Wendy. I was asking, like, our farm is in Northwood, Kutama Sidings. So I was asking which region is that and what is the recommendation, the varieties that we could plant. And then the second question was for Ziwanai. I was just telling that I took my soil sample rather late and got the results end of September, of which the pH is 4.2. So they recommended the type of lime for me to put, but I was wondering, is it not too late now to put the lime, considering that it is to be, they'll be 3 months before planting? And if I do not do that now, what would be the recommendation to ensure that my yield is successful?
pH of 4.2 is very strongly acidic. Our advice is for the farmer to apply their lime this season if they are planting their maize. But if they want to do potato, is one crop that is quite sensitive when you apply your lime just prior to planting. But as for maize, I like to believe that the one who gave you the recommendation, I'm sure, talked about splitting your lime into 2 seasons. So my advice is for you to apply it, though you won't have immediate benefit from it, but it's better than planting without applying the lime.
All right, thank you for taking that one.
For your area there, you are safer off if it's a 100% rain-fed crop. You are safer off growing a medium maturing variety. In that basket, the drought-tolerant one we have is 657. And then you can also then get the 659, which is one of the varieties that is also performing very well in the medium maturity group. But then if you see that the season has progressed and you have not planted, you might want to move some of your last plantings to the 555, which is the 500 series that we are recommending. And then there was a question from Kwekwe, I think. Was it?
Yes, from Kwekwe, they were asking about the variety suitable for their area.
Okay, so Kwekwe then becomes a bit tricky in the sense that last season, Kwekwe in some areas like in Sherwood Block, they received rains of 1,000, 1,200, 200 millimeters, which is not traditionally the norm. So they received a bit of an abnormal type of rainfall, but Kwekwe generally falls within region 3. So for region 3, under normal circumstances, we recommend that our farmers grow 500 series varieties, 555, 529, 529 for earlier plantings, and then you can also go for 657, which is a drought tolerant one. With irrigation, which I'm sure the farmer indicated that they might have, they can grow the 700 series and plant early so that you can get a good head start in terms of the heat units, and then the season will catch up when the crop is already in the field, but with supplementary irrigation when need arises.
All right, thank you very much, Wendy, for taking that one. And I see a lot of questions and comments coming through, unfortunately, because of our time, farmers, we will have to end this meeting so that our panelists will have other business. So we would like to thank our guest, Wendy Mazura from SEEDCO. Thank you very much. And Zivana Ikonzo from ZFC. Thank you very much for sharing their knowledge and expertise, and also for making time to attend this event. To our participants, thank you for joining, and we hope that you have benefited from this webinar and great presentations that we had. So from Agribusiness Media, my name is Rawlings. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Thank you.